Hi, hopefully you can hear me okay. I had to reset the live stream because it didn't work. Um, so hopefully I can see the chat. Hopefully you can see and hear me okay. Um, move my move my mouse and my keyboard out of the way. Um, so I've had quite a few people asking me about the dust bags that I make for all of the bags that I do. So I thought I would just come on and make one up because I want to make one up for the pelican that I'm obviously sewing tomorrow. So I thought, why not come on and make it tonight? Um, so I will sort of explain how I do the measurements and everything. But I'll also go back in and put that in the description box down below as well, so you can go in and refer to that for the measurements. And then if anybody's a member of the Bagmate Society Club, I have actually uploaded my spreadsheet that I use to just put my figures in. Let me just see if I've got it up. I think I have. I'm just going to go onto my web browser. So this is the spreadsheet that I use. It's just very basic, but I have uploaded it into the club area. So basically just along the top here, you put in the width of your bag, the height of your bag, the depth of your bag, and it does the calculations for you. And it also tells you the cord length that you need to cut. So just come back to me. That's basically in there. But how you work the measurements out is take the width of your bag and add in the depth of your bag and add 1.5 times the depth to the width of your bag and add an inch. And that is the width that you want to cut your fabric. And then for the height of the fabric, you want to take the height of your bag, the depth times 1.5, add that on, and then add 2 inches on. I'm going to click over onto my other camera now so you can see. So basically this is quite a fairly big piece of fabric. I think it's about, off the top of my head, I think it came out at like 20.5 by 18.5, so 20.5 by 18.5. If you want to go up and make that 21 and 19, then that's fine. But just to go over again, when you work out the width of your fabric, it is the width of your bag plus 1.5 times the depth plus an inch. And then the height of your bag is the height of your fabric is the height of your bag plus the depth at 1.5 plus 2 inches. I use a very sort of similar calculation formula to Rebecca, who has butter bags. I know she makes dust bags for all of her bags as well. So yeah, I use a fairly similar measurements, but I make mine up ever so slightly differently. So the cord, I've already pre-cut my cord, and you want to cut your cord 2.5 times this width. That's usually a good sort of measurement. So hopefully you can see here, I've marked down 2 inches along the width of my fabric. So that is basically where we need to stop and start sewing, and it's also where we're going to create the channel for our cord. So how I like to do mine is, you'll see I've got a little mark, and I'm going to use a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So that mark is 3/8 of an inch, and I'm just going to cut it. I'm going to snip it, and I'm going to do that on both sides. And I'm going through both pieces of fabric here. I'm just cutting them both at the same time. I keep my pieces together the whole time that I'm working because I want to make sure that they don't move and slip about. The fabric that I'm using is just some curtain lining. I really like the blackout lining because it doesn't fray. The outside of it has like a sort of almost suede like feel to it. So that's why I like to use the curtain lining, and I prefer blackout lining. The only thing I find with the door is that you can't really press it because it's a little bit plasticky and it doesn't like it. So I just kind of tend to clip and I don't press. So the first thing that I'm going to do just on one side is I'm going to take this edge down. Sorry, I'm going to fold in where I've snipped first, and then I'm going to fold down to meet where I've clipped. So I'm going to do that on the other side too. So just where I've cut it, I'm going to fold it in, and then I'm going to fold that top edge down to meet where I've clipped. And then I'm basically just going to clip along, because I'm not pressing, this 1 inch fold. Donna saying I've got loads of calico with that work. Yeah, you might find that the calico will fray a little bit, so you might want to add a little bit extra onto this seam just to turn it under, just that it's not a raw edge. But it will work absolutely perfectly. So, and then I'm just going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to fold where I've snipped, and then just fold that top down. So basically what you're doing is you're creating a 1 inch channel, and you're just folding this edge in so that it's turned in, it's not raw. And then I'm just going to do exactly the same all along here. If you want to use like a hem, you know, like hem guide to check that you're folding it in exactly by 1 inch, then by all means do so. I just tend to eyeball it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to top stitch, or use a top stitching length, but I'm going to sew along this edge here to create my channel. So obviously I'm using a walking foot machine, so this fabric is a little bit lighter, so sometimes I do have to sort of like control my machine and make sure it doesn't slide, but it is perfectly doable. So I'm literally just going to sew along, and I'm going to come in, just going to bring my little app up to change my camera angles. There we go. So I'm just literally going to sew along that edge by about 1/8 of an inch, and I'm just going to use a top stitching length. So obviously just making sure that I'm only sewing through one at a time. And I just back stitch at the beginning and at the end as well, just to make sure that that seam isn't going to go anywhere. And then I'm just going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. I find with this blackout lining as well, it's it's cheap as chips, so it doesn't work out very expensive to make these dust bags. Just take these clips off. So I've created my channels at the top, and now all I want to do is sew down these edges here. So basically from where I've clipped in, I want to sew down all the way to the bottom, all the way along, and then all the way back up the top. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm lined up. I'm going to come down to a construction stitch. Use your seam guide if you want to. Going to back stitch a little bit in the corner just to reinforce. Which is just a force of habit anyway. Sophie says she's taken notes. Feel free. I will put the measurements as I described them. I will go back and put them in the description. I'm just making sure that I'm lined up still. Just trim back my threads. I think I need some new snips. Just get rid of all of these clips. Oh, actually, I'll keep these two out. So that could be your dust bag pretty much finished and done. Just put the cord through, but are you leaving the seams raw? Yes, I'm leaving them raw because this does not fray. That is why I use it. So if you wanted to do French seams, if your fabric was going to fray, then you can by all means do French seams. But yes, I'll just leave my seams raw because this fabric does not fray at all. So what I like to do now, Donna says, where did you get those clips? I've been looking for some. These ones, Donna, just off Amazon. I can post a link in the description. So I'm going to box my corners. Like I say, we all know that I'm a little bit OTT and I'm a little bit extra. So I like to make sure that I'm all lined up. I'm basically looking inside the bag and making sure that this seam and this seam are lined up, and I'm just going to butterfly them, and I'm just going to pop a couple of little clips in this corner to keep it in place. I'm going to do the other side while I'm on. I tend to just, when I'm making them, I tend to just work on a side at a time, but just to make it a little bit easier for those of you following along, I'll do both at the same time. So, and I just put a little clip in to keep it in place. And I'm going to make sure that one seam's going one way and one seam's going the other way, so we don't have too much bulk. And then, because we know our bag is 3 inches wide, that's the depth, sorry, that is the measurement of the bag. I'm going to create a line that's just ever so slightly over 3 inches along here. So what I tend to do is, I'll use my smaller, oh no, I'll use this one, is I just tend to use my ruler, and obviously half of 3 inches is 1.5, so I'm going to go just slightly over 1.5. I need to move them clips out of the way because they are in the way, and I just bring it down until this ruler meets, and then obviously it goes to the other side. So I know that this line here is just over, it's about 3.25, and I'm happy with that. And I'm making sure that one of my lines on the ruler is lined up with this seam, like this stitching line, so I know it's nice and straight. I know it is the perpendicular. Is that the word to use? And I'm just going to mark it, and then I'm just going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. I'm just going to move them up, and then mark this. Like I say, it's about 3.25. If you want to make it a tiny touch deeper and do it 3.5, then that would be okay, but I'm just going to do 3.25. And then I'm basically just going to sew over this line. So the line I've marked, hopefully you can see that. I'm just going to turn that light off so it doesn't shine so bright. So you can see where that line is. Pop my light back on again so I can see what I'm doing. And then exactly the same thing on the other side. Donna says, I've been struggling to match box seams on a small 4 pouch and struggling. Do you match the box bottom to the bag width? I go just ever so slightly over. So my bag depth is going to be 3 inches, because that's what the pelican tote is. So I've made my line about 3.25. Just going back to what you were saying about struggling to match box seams on a small 4 pouch and still struggling. Do you mean like these bits? Basically make sure that your seams are lined up, and that will make it easier. So I'm just going to trim this back. And see where I didn't have my threads pulled nice and tight and it's nested a bit, but it is fine. So I'm just going to pull this through. And then we have a nice box bottom. You can see that those seams line up fairly well. I'm just going to push that through. And then I'm literally just going to feed through the, I'm in on my too close a camera. I'm just going to feed through the cord through this channel, and then our bag is done. And then it means when I have finished my pelican tote, it can go straight in to the dust bag, and it can be kept all nice. If you want to make the drawstring so that it comes through on both sides, so you can like pull the drawstring at either side. All you would do is feed through another piece of cord from the opposite side. I only ever put one piece in. I find it works perfectly well with just the one drawstring, but if you want to put two in, then that's fine. Just go from opposite ends. And I've just got a little bit of tape on the ends of my cord just to sort of stop it fraying. So there is our dust bag all ready to go. I'm trying to think if I've got a bag similar size to the pelican. I've got this Sunshine, which is actually a little bit bigger. The depth is a little bit bigger, but it'll give you an idea of how this works. And there we go, all nice and protected. It's going to protect it from dust. It's going to stop it getting marked. There's plenty of extra space as well, so if you've got anything that you're storing in the bag, so the bag's a little bit more bulky, there's plenty of space. If you make a matching purse and you want to put the purse in there, there's plenty of space as well. So I hope that's been helpful, and you've been able to follow along okay. So just to recap, I use curtain lining. I use the blackout type because it doesn't fray, and it gives, I don't know if you can kind of, if the camera's not really picking up because it's picking up too much light, it's the blackout lining has this sort of like faux suede-ish feel, and it just looks lovely. You can obviously stamp, if you've got a stamp with your business name on. If you're a business, you could stamp it on. You could embroider it as well if you wanted to. I don't have the time to do that. So but just to go over the measurements again, your width is the width of your bag plus 1.5 times the depth of your bag plus 1 inch. The height of your fabric is the height of your bag plus the depth, like 1.5 times the depth plus 2 inches. And I find that works pretty well. Probably could reduce the measurements ever so slightly, but I like to make sure that there is plenty space, and you know, the bag's not too tightly compacted and it's crushed. It gives it plenty room. Michelle says, I've been meaning to make these for my completed handbags, so you've reminded me to add it to my list. I'm so pleased, and hopefully the measurements and everything are easy enough to understand. Obviously, Michelle, I know you're in the club, so you've got access to the spreadsheet that I showed earlier on. Kathy saying, thank you, you're very welcome. Donna says, perfect. I was thinking about doing them for my new posh bags. That will be for sale. It's an added extra. Yeah, I think it can, especially if you are a business, if you are selling your bags, it really can sort of elevate your makes and sort of set them apart from other people. But it also means that if you've got bags for them, when you're going in between craft fairs or events or anything like that, wherever you've got them stored, this helps to keep them protected too. So it's not just an added extra for selling them, which I think is fantastic. It's also extra protection for until they sell. It keeps them all nice, not dusty, stops them getting marked. It stops if you've got, and I know it's happened to somebody in the group, if you're storing your bags together and there's any sort of like moisture gets in where you're storing them. You can sometimes get transfer of the colours from like your leather or your faux leather or even your cottons. If you've got like a dark bag and a light bag next to each other, there can sometimes be a bit of a crossover that can transfer colour if they're, you know, they're quite tightly packed and they don't have any protection on them, you know, if there's any moisture gets in or anything like that. So it's another way to sort of protect the bags that you've made when you spend so much time making them. So yeah, it's probably only in the last few months that I've started doing dust bags to go with the bags that I make. But it does, like all the ones that I've got stored in my cupboard up there all have dust bags. They're all put away in the cupboard. Obviously they're protected in the cupboard, but they're protected from each other because they've got the dust bags on. Donna saying it happened to her when she lost a gazebo in a thunderstorm. Yeah, like if the bags get slightly damp and you don't realise, and then they're stored next to each other, you can sometimes get that colour transfer from a very dark fabric to a light fabric, and you don't want that happening. So like I say, hope you've enjoyed joining me very briefly this evening. I was going to make that up anyway, so I thought I might as well come on and do it live, so that I've got that dust bag all ready to go for when I make the pelican tomorrow. So if any of you are about tomorrow afternoon and you want to join me for a little bit of sewing, I am going to be sewing up the pelican tote. I have done a little prep video of just the pattern pieces, which is linked in the description of the live. So if you go onto my channel, you'll see upcoming lives. It's in there, or it'll be in the Let's Sew Together playlist. And then if you go into the description, there's a link to that video, and it just goes through the pattern pieces, how I've interfaced them and what have you. Donna says YouTube reminded me for once. Yeah, sometimes the notifications work and sometimes they just don't, and then sometimes I have to go on and reset the live anyway because it doesn't work like it didn't tonight. So I'm going to go and get a cup of tea and have my tea and go and chill out for the rest of this evening. So whatever you're doing, hope you have a lovely afternoon or lovely evening wherever it is that you are, and hopefully I'll see some of you tomorrow. So see you soon. Thanks for joining me. Bye.